Welcome here today. My name is Serko. I'm a third generation West Papuan here in the Netherlands. Maybe you can give a short introduction on who you are.
Sure. Well, my name's Jennifer Robinson. I'm a human rights lawyer based in London. I'm Australian, but I'm also part of International Lawyers for West Papua, which is a group which is seeking to use the law to raise awareness about the suffering of the West Papuan people and to make clear the right for self-determination.
All right, so, of course I followed it a little bit, but can you give me an update on how this process of this council is going, of international lawyers?
Sure. At the moment we are documenting, we've already made clear through legal opinion the fact that West Papua has a right to self-determination and a right that was denied to them in the late 1960s. We are now gathering members from all over the world who can work together in their respective countries with international parliamentarians for West Papua to raise both human rights issues and West Papua's right to self-determination in the respective parliaments. We're also working together with lawyers on the ground in West Papua to raise awareness about ongoing human rights abuse there, including most recently the Jaipura 5 political prisoners who were recently convicted to 3 years in prison for peacefully expressing their views for self-determination.
Exactly,
And so we're trying to work together to provide international support and solidarity for lawyers working on these issues.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. Firstly, beautiful work what you guys are doing, and I support it fully. But what I always find difficult growing up in my generation is how is it possible that human rights are being violated in such a obvious and giant way, and that it's still so difficult to do something about it. So maybe the question is, what is the biggest obstacle in just changing this big human rights violations?
Well, the first problem with respect to West Papua is the lack of access to information. The fact that journalists are not allowed permitted entry to West Papua. Foreign international organisations like Peace Brigade International, even the Red Cross, to access political prisoners, have been refused entry to Indonesia. And without having information about what's happening on the ground and documentation about what's happening, it's hard to engage the international media. How can the media report on West Papua if they're not permitted entry? And so I think number one is lack of access to information about what's happening on the ground. But secondly, it's a difficulty in bringing cases against Indonesia because they're not a party to many of the human rights treaties that we need them to be a party to, and if not the human rights treaties, the international complaint mechanisms. But there's still room for movement. International human rights are universal. Indonesia is a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It is a member of the UN, and so we need to use what we have available to us at the UN to raise the West Papua case. And yes, human rights abuses are rife in West Papua, and it is a difficult problem, but that should only spur us to think about solutions rather than to think it's too big a problem to deal with.
Nicely said. So basically, what I can have a little translation. If I'm wrong, just correct me if you want. There's politics in the way of human situations in this world. How can we change the system in this world a little bit, that laws are made out of the human rights? Because basically what I now see, we have international human rights, but the national laws and the international procedures of politics are in the way of the human rights, and this makes it such difficult that we have to make these little steps, like you were saying. How can we, as an international lawyer, how can we switch this around, that the human rights come first and then the political laws?
That's, as long as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has existed, we've all been asking that question. Unfortunately, particularly at the UN level, where action on human rights is most needed, the difficulty is getting a consensus amongst states to act. And we've seen it in other parts of the world. We're seeing it today with respect to Syria, the UN cannot decide to take action on what is a terrible humanitarian situation. So it is a common problem, but we have to keep raising the issue and keep raising awareness. And it will take, I think, governments like the Netherlands, who have a moral and historical obligation towards West Papua, to begin raising it at the UN. It will take other states, their brothers in Melanesia, Vanuatu, PNG, their big brother in the region, Australia, to raise this issue at the UN and to help to create a consensus and to build a consensus at the UN that this has to stop and we have to change it.
Yeah, thank you. Like Wenda said, basically the message is start with the connections and the relationships you already have and build from there up to a worldwide level of awareness.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so
It was really nice to meet you.